Hello and welcome to the second look from the Anfield wrap after Liverpool have beaten Tottenham by 2-1 at Anfield, the second one being the worst and simultaneously best goal you've ever seen in your entire life. The Reds are back at the top of the Premier League. Manchester City have a game in the week, but frankly at this stage who's arsed about that, because as long as Liverpool keep doing things like this, it's all going to work out in the end. To get giddy about the greatest team in the land, with me I've got Dave Lynch and Rob Gutmann. And Rob, that was just brilliant, wasn't it? It was just one of the best ever.
Yeah, they're putting us through it. It felt like I did at Fulham 2 weeks ago, where I had that 9 minutes of my life, which I thought, I don't ever want to go through that again, and I went through it again, thanks to them. Made us go through it all over again. But I nowhere saw us coming back and winning that game. I'd actually lost track of the time. I was so upset when they equalised. I thought, I'm not going to clock watch like I normally do, because I'd been clock watching from the whole start of the second half. I thought, we've got to 69, 60, whatever it was. We'll see this out, but no. So I didn't watch. And actually, when we scored the winner, I assumed it was the last kick of the game. And then next he goes, there's 5 minutes. Oh, fuck. Got no evidence of last season there could have been 3 more goals.
Dave, the celebration at the end, the scenes around the ground are just absolutely incredible. And it's one of those moments where I sort of, once we'd finished doing that, we had to watch the rest of the game, as Rob rightly points out. It was one of those things where you look around and you see just the combination of shock and joy on people's faces and go, some people don't like football. And they don't understand how good this is.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely perfect, wasn't it? I just think in moments like that, I mean, I was watching the clock, to be honest. I was keeping an eye on it and thinking, there's no way. You can't imagine after Everton that you will have a moment close to that satisfying. And obviously it wasn't against your local rivals, but still to win in that fashion and with the way the goal went in, just perfect. And yeah, brilliant celebrations again. And everyone knows what's at stake at this point, so it's just times a million that it would usually be just getting a late winner over Spurs. If that was just in a top 4 battle, I just don't think it would look the way it did. It was absolutely crazy, brilliant.
Because you feel any result now that doesn't go our way, and that's it.
Yeah, that was the feeling as it ticked towards the 90th minute. It was like, oh.
I was having a conversation with my mate next to me about how that wasn't it. Even he was going, that's it. I go, maybe it isn't it. Maybe we will draw, but it's not it. I'm thinking, but it's going to be fucking difficult by the next day. You're going to go, if we slip before they do, you need 2 results. And 2 results when you've only got like a handful of games left, literally, just feels too much. Even though logic says they've got hard games. So that was just massive, wasn't it? I mean, yeah, we've got that out the way. They've got it still to come. I think Spurs can bring some pain to them.
So you stood or you sat watching at the end of that game and you're thinking about the repercussions for this. Well, we've got to go and beat Southampton now, and maybe they'll drop points at Palace or Burnley or whatever, and you're doing it all in your head. And then sort of from nowhere, it just ends up going in. And it's just the best way to win a game of football. I think you can win 5-0, you can win 10-0, whatever. You can have someone score a perfect hat-trick. But a shit goal that mightn't be deserved in the last minute is the pinnacle.
This troubles me philosophically, though. It is the best way to win a game of football, but you never want to win it that way because it's so stressful.
To be fair, Aristotle did say that.
Did he?
Yes.
Aristotle was partial to the bottle. Yeah, you never want to go through it, so there is a paradox there wrapped within something.
If you think about the start of the 90 minutes and someone's telling you that there's a possibility you're going to win like that, you're like, no, that is bad, because the moment and the 20 minutes from the Spurs goal is horrendous.
It's hell, yes, yeah. That's purgatory.
But then that's why the joy is such a release. And to be honest, I do need Liverpool to stop sgoring late, just because I have to write about it.
It doesn't help you.
Yeah, it's absolutely killing me.
You've got to guess the results.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, we'll go through the game now. We'll come back to the goal later because I simply can't stop talking about it. I've basically been walking around since it happened, and I'll just remember it at sort of 30-second intervals, and I'll just laugh out loud in public on my own. I was doing it on the train on the way here, and people are looking at me like I'm a lunatic. But it makes sense if you're a football fan.
Yes,
so Liverpool start really, really well, I think. Much stronger than Tottenham.
Do you mean from minute 1, or do you mean from like?
I'm talking from about 5 in. So 5 into about 30, 35.
Yeah,
Liverpool
right.
in control of the game. I was next to Sean Walsh in the stadium and said that we could win this before half time, basically, because they weren't necessarily making loads of gilt-head chances that they were missing. It wasn't like the goalkeeper was pulling off loads of saves, but we just had them so penned in and they couldn't get the football in the midfield, and it felt like this is all going to be fine. We're not going to be sweating on this at the end or anything like that. And then it all sort of shifts from there, Dave.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning those first 5 where sort of Spurs looked sort of quite dangerous going down the sides. And
that's right,
like, it gave you a reminder really early on that these are a quality side, like this isn't going to be easy. But then Liverpool just seemed to settle, and then when Liverpool scored, it was when they sort of looked quite encouraging really going forward, and it's a brilliant goal as well from Liverpool. Just Andy Robertson, just...
Oh, it's brilliant. It's a perfect cross. You kind of wonder how Spurs how their centre-halves allow themselves to get split like that and to leave them in such space.
But that's Firmino's movement. If you watch it, his little drop off before he just creates the gap for himself, walks into it, and then it just looks like the easiest thing in the world to pop the ball over like Robertson does. But obviously, we've all played football and it's not.
No, they were saying, I've heard some of the comments at half-time saying, Liverpool scored out of the blue a bit. Well, no, it's just a ridiculously simply executed goal, isn't it? And you're right, the football we play afterwards is great. I think the key moment for me is that series of little tippy-tappy 1-2s where it's literally stopped for Mane to bend it. Which, if that goes in, it's one of my favourite goals of all time, by the way, if that goes in. Because Salah does an amazing piece of skill there in the build-up to that bit. Yeah, and we are all over them. And we're creating half chance after half chance.
Dave, I thought the midfield selection was partly to do with that, because we've got 3 very combative as well as technically good footballers in there, and they've basically got Moussa Sissoko on his own. Pochettino said to him, be a midfield today, please, lads, and we're going to play these ones up front and maybe try and win it on the break. And it didn't work for them whatsoever until about 35, when it seemed to me like Dele Alli basically went and sat next to him for a bit. They got an actual 2-man midfield. And then Moussa Sissoko might have been the best player on the pitch. Yeah,
well that was it. Mauricio Pochettino's hand was slightly forced by obviously injuries to Winks and Dyer, so he didn't really have much choice in terms of midfield, and that was of course why they also went with that 3 at the back as well, because they just didn't have the numbers to put in central midfield. But I think that's why Liverpool sort of controlled things, particularly around the opening goal. Liverpool sort of completely bossed it, but then that change of shape then was the thing that changed it, wasn't it? It was with Tottenham giving themselves some extra bodies in there, and that's what the game changed on really, is in the centre of the park, I thought.
I thought Liverpool were nervier after the change. I thought we'd start that first 5 minutes, I thought we were a bit nervy and error-strewn, and the keeper hadn't helped things with being a little bit too preemptive and spilling the ball. Yeah. And then there was, Jordan Henderson, I didn't think had a good first half. He gave the ball away needlessly twice, but I don't think he was alone. But after half-time, we were really caught in, I know the Tottenham change of system makes a difference, but I think Liverpool mentally were caught in a stick or twist conundrum. Yeah. And we weren't playing with confidence. And Klopp said afterwards, and I actually thought the same thing at Fulham last week, and I thought yesterday, in a weird, perverse sort of way, Tottenham scoring was necessary for Liverpool to start playing again. We were never going to get at the second goal we needed to win that game without them scoring. So you wouldn't script it that way. The danger for us, I think, would have been, had Tottenham taken another 10 minutes to equalise, that we would then have not had enough time to respond. It was just, the same against Fulham, it just about gave us enough time to get our act together, because we're a different team after they score.
Speaking of the change in shape for Tottenham, Neil Atkinson has had his tactics board and his counters out again, and he's had a look at how both teams set up, how it changed throughout the game, and how Liverpool end up winning the match.
This is how the first half of Liverpool versus Tottenham Hotspur played out. A game with very, very, very few chances in it for either side, to be quite honest with you. Really close indeed. There's obviously the big Sissoko miss in the second half that everyone remembers. In the first, Liverpool were the better side. They were in charge, but they weren't creating very much. It's fair to say that Tottenham were defensively solid. It was a back 5, really, rather than a back 3. Although when they could, it is fair to say that the wing-backs bombed on. And what that gave us was actually an object lesson in how Liverpool, who presses where, when, how, whose responsibility it is. And it is almost like the pitch is in thirds. This part of the pitch, Salah will charge down and get involved. And he will work all the way back if someone's missing. But if not, Wijnaldum works over and works much of this little bit of the pitch. It's interesting to me, the midfield 3, any of Liverpool's midfield 3s, that they can at times become really rather stretched, and this is a decent representation of the average position of the first half. And you've only got to see that Milner, most of his involvement was over on one flank, Wijnaldum's was mostly on the other, and then you're left with Henderson in the middle of the pitch, coming in, trying to help both sides, but they shuttle back and forth all the way through, and that's the way in which they work, trying to cover a line of 4, but with just 3 of them, and then they can get exposed. And they got exposed tactically by Tottenham in the second 45. He changed it, either from Pochettino from the stands, or his coaching staff changed it. Rose all the way up here into a back 4, which came right the way along here. Ali getting stuck in there, and Eriksen tight in on that side of the pitch, really, but with Rose making the pitch absolutely enormous and playing as a pretty threatening left-hand sided player. And that meant that they could switch all the way through the second half. Tottenham popping it into Alexander-Arnold, who himself would go to Trippier. The ball would then come back across, and Rose would be given licence to cheat and give Trent all sorts of problems at right back, and then Liverpool could not work over. The manager's solution in the end was to go to something that looked a bit like a 4-4-2, to be quite honest with you. It was Firmino in there, Salah up top, and then he was trying to get Wijnaldum out onto the right-hand side just before the goal. Eventually he makes the subs he makes. Mane comes over to here, Origi comes over to here. There is Firmino. It's a 4-2-3-1 / a 4-4-2, something much more orthodox from Liverpool. And Fabinho and Wijnaldum get to play in centre midfield, and they get to play as a 2 rather than having the pressure of just being a 1 in there. I said before, it was a game with very few chances. Even when Tottenham were in control of the match, it wasn't as though they were splitting Liverpool apart over and over again. That wasn't what was happening. And the manager took a little bit of criticism that maybe he was late with his changes. He was trying to change it from the sidelines. I could see the conversations ongoing. But it's not so much that, it's more, it was 1-0. And I think in his mind, it's 1-0. He was waiting for Tottenham to make their first sub. I think he thought his side were going to be able to see out that little run, that little passage of play. And then at some point, Son was going to come on. And I think he wanted to see who Son was going to come on for before he made his changes. As it was, he did Origi, went to this sort of shape, as I've just detailed there for you. And as it was, Liverpool got the 3 points in the end. You don't always get them right when you're a football manager, but sometimes you can get them right and you can get beat. And sometimes you can get them maybe less right, but you get a last-minute own goal.
Thanks very much to Neil for that again. And Rob, second half, Liverpool come back out. Played quite well, I think, for maybe the first sort of 10 or 15 after that.
Was it that long?
Well, it didn't feel that long.
No.
And then suddenly, I think Tottenham started to control the ball in the middle. And I was looking at it and thinking, I'd just like them to bring Fabinho on. Because our 3 individually, I don't think we're having great games. None of them were especially bad. But it felt like it just needed one person to stand in the very middle of the pitch and just stay there, basically. Because I thought the 3 of them were getting sort of dragged around. They were changing sides a lot. And it was telling, I think, that Klopp had Fabinho basically warming up for like 10 minutes before Tottenham score. And then that's when he actually brings him on.
Yeah, I need to watch the whole thing back again, but I saw a lot of comments after the game that Tottenham really took a stranglehold on that second half in the way that they did last season at Anfield. Do you remember when we were holding a lead?
Yeah.
I don't think they did quite as much this time. In the 5 minutes coming into the goal, there's a bit more urgency about them, and that's sort of typified by the way they take the free kick quickly. Mm-hmm. But I was clock watching. I thought we were a bit sloppy, but I thought we were keeping our shape. We were in position. I thought we were okay with this. There was signs beginning to emerge that we might be able to break out and get nabbed that second. But Spurs do sort of power play it, for use an expression, for about 5 minutes. And to that extent, the goal was coming, although I don't think it's quite as compelling that they were getting back into that game as some have said post-match.
Dave, they're a brilliant side on the break. We saw that yesterday, we've seen it across the season and the whole time that they've been playing under Pochettino. They have the chance a little while before they score, maybe 5 or 10 minutes before, where Christian Eriksen ends up having a shot after Harry Kane's original effort has been saved. Andy Robertson throws a brilliant block in. But then, as Rob mentions, they take that free kick so quickly that it felt like, because they were just moving so quickly, because they had a bit more control in the middle than what they did before, it felt like they would go, if they were going to do something, it was by getting in on the break.
Yeah, I've seen Jordan Henderson get some criticism for not blocking the free kick, but when you see when Harry Kane throws it down, he sees where Henderson is and puts it basically to the side of him, and then he's straight on. So there's nothing. So it should have been disallowed for that. But I mean, there's not really much Jordan Henderson can do about that. He's given the foul away and then it's up and gone. But yeah, really quick thinking from Spurs, and they are a good side, aren't they? You saw in that moment, it's the fact that once that ball gets out there, it's in goal. And they're a good side. Those things can happen. I think it did feel like it was coming in the sense that around the goal that they'd started to up it in terms of possession, and also started to take more risks, which was allowing Liverpool a couple of countering opportunities. But yeah, so that added to the feeling of it was coming, but there was also possibly opportunities that Liverpool could have done better on the counter, so they could have really ended the game there, but it just went Spurs' way. And then obviously we've got that dramatic finish there.
You look how many bodies they have in the box when Mara scores.
Yeah.
That's a team taking a lot of chances. So that's it. You think that deflects our way, and Alisson's pounced on it and gets it out quickly, we'd have had a hell of a counter on there. So they were taking the kind of risks that we were going to end up taking 15 minutes after that.
Once it goes to 1-1, Rob, basically up until that ball takes an hour to dribble over the line.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone really thinks it's happening for us, because from that moment onwards, we look, you can tell that Liverpool are still going for it, but they look a bit impotent going forward. They're not making, genuine chances. The only genuine chance that really comes about is the Musa Sissoko one that Tottenham have. It feels to me at that point like if anyone's going to win this, it's probably them.
I think they have that a minute or two part of a couple of counters with the biggest of which is the Sissoko one, which was always going to happen because we had to, we've had games where you can see Klopp was going to take a point. I think here he decided, because he goes 4-2-4 effectively with the substitutions, doesn't he? Here he decided, I don't give a fuck. We are going for this, and I think that's what leaves us so crazily open. So to say, I know you're not incorrect, but everyone said it. Spurs looked like the only side winning. I'm not sure they did. They were much more compact, but we were certainly having a lot of the ball, a lot more of the ball than we had before. And it was a siege of sorts. Siege never looks like a good siege. It always looks like a frustrating siege until you see the final bit of it, which is where you score. But I've watched a couple of things back again. There was more half chances in that phase for us than I remembered during the game.
Divock Origi wins, I think, 3 corners on the bounce in that period. So Liverpool were obviously up in the right areas of the pitch to do that.
And Virgil heads one wide, which he might put away on another day. I think Trent cuts inside. He curls one from quite an acute angle, but it's a really, really good effort. They're not mad chances, or there's a scramble where it lands, won't quite land at Firmino's feet. Sort of almost like the goal, but in the parallel universe where it doesn't work out. So, you know what? I mean, even we're going to talk about the goal in detail now, but that goal doesn't exist in isolation. It exists because Liverpool are largely camped on the edge of that box.
And Dave, that Sissoko chance comes about because Liverpool have got pretty much all of their men in the Tottenham Hotspur half, pushing, probing, trying to find a pass through. We have to talk about what Virgil van Dijk does for it, because it's when you see it in the ground or on TV, it looks like he can't defend it because there's just more men than him, and they're running at him at pace, and he's got to be jogging backwards. And then he just does the best thing possible. He goes to move towards Musa Sissoko, and then he goes, hang on. You're crap. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mark the good lad. You take a shot on your left, mate, that's fine. But it's so intelligent to be able to react under pressure in the best way possible in that moment.
Well, that's it. And at that level of football as well, you don't normally see a defender being able to do that so decisively. So these professional footballers, they always seem to find a way to get the ball across to the man. These counter-attacks always seem to end in a goal or at least a shot on target. And so that just shows the level he's defending at. I mean, I had a colleague sat next to me who obviously watches Spurs more than he watches Liverpool, but he just said he looks like an advanced human, Virgil van Dijk. It doesn't look real what he's doing when he's playing with these other professional footballers. He looks like a man amongst boys. So he's just world class, isn't he? It was an absolutely brilliant moment.
I think Sissoko is rightly terrified of. You see, I think if it's against another defender, the forward's instinct is, okay, you're coming, I'll check inside at the last moment, allowing me an easy 3-yard pass to my right to give that guy an open goal. But he doesn't dare turn back towards Virgil. He thinks, I've got to keep this exclusion zone of 2 metres between me and this big cunt at all. And while I said that, I've just said it. Between me and him at all times. And that's what forces his hand. And then he thinks, yes. And I don't know if Virgil knows that his left is his weaker foot. But he's on his left, and all he can think to do is he's got to hit the postage stamp on the top right of the goal, and that's not that easy a skill. So by the time he's taken the shot, although people go he skied it, it's not an easy finish, I don't think, and that is down to Virgil's mind game.
I love that Musa Sissoko missed that chance and Liverpool going to win the game because he looked at Virgil van Dijk and saw natural selection in action. Like all of Darwin's theories confirmed by Virgil van Dijk doing a bit of defending there at Anfield yesterday. We'll talk about the goal. I want to talk about the goal again because it just makes me so happy. It's just the tamest header you could ever really care to see. It's not even at a particularly interesting angle. The goalkeeper shouldn't have to move as much as he decides he has to move, and as much as I don't think he's an especially good goalkeeper, but he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world. He's in the top 20 or 30 or something like that. He's very competent. He's the captain of that team. He's the captain of France. He knows what he's doing. So I'm just perplexed as to why he does what he does, Dave, and it brings me back to the whole sort of spiritualism of Anfield thing. Is it just basically we force that to happen? Is it he knows what's behind him, what's in front of him, and it all gets to his head? Because this sort of stuff seems to happen too much. It's happened with Speroni, it's happened with Pickford. It can't be a coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch it in the slow-mo replays, I know they can obviously sort of deceive you sometimes, but he seems so soft on his touch on the ball, just indecisive, just doesn't, you think when that header goes in, you're thinking that's the classic end to a frustrating draw, isn't it? Oh, he's straight into his hands, game over. But it's just a soft hand at it, and then there's even further confusion as it dribbles towards the line because Lloris makes a move towards it, and Alderweireld thinks he's going to get it, and then he moves late, and then it's, before you know it's over the line. It's just, it has to be something about Anfield that makes goalkeepers do these mad things because, the atmosphere was up at that moment. Liverpool had got those succession of corners and stuff. So, it has to be something like that because I know Lloris makes mistakes from time to time, but that one was a real howler.
Because it is, because again, the context again, it's, people don't want to say it's been painted as a fluke goal, but it is a result of pressure. And that ball, I know it's not the greatest header back, but that ball beyond the keeper to the far post is something Liverpool do look for. Trent looks for it a lot. When it's gone over the keeper's head, and that's what's happening, he's frightened then as to what's going to happen next because the ball's going to come back across to people going that way. It's a moment of anxiety for him.
Yeah, and thinking about Sadio Mane at the back post.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, of course, it's an error, but I think it's very much a forced error. I think you could look back, people compare it, say, to the Pickford, Van Dijk, Origi goal. That's a total fluke in the sense that Van Dijk's turned away at such a shit shot. Whereas we have played the ball into an incredibly dangerous part of the field for that goal. And we've done it a lot, by the way, in the 10 minutes prior to that. In fact, I noticed we were hanging balls under Lloris's bar all afternoon long. In the first half, we nearly scored from a couple of corners. I was sort of saying to my mate next to me, going, if these were just 5 yards less deep, it looked like we were trying to score from corners every time. I know that wasn't literally a corner, but still.
David's also a reminder that our goalkeeper's brilliant. Because he has a few moments, he has the one with Milner, he just passes the ball out to play for throw-ins on a few occasions as well, which is unlike him. But he doesn't do shit like that. He boxes things like that off, and it's brilliant to have someone that you're so sure of.
Yeah, I turned to Mel Reddy during the game and said after one of his numerous mistakes that he made yesterday that he's not only a brilliant goalkeeper generally, but he's also quite a lucky one, which I think is a great quality to have. He seems to, when he makes his mistakes, he's doing them in the right areas. He's always sort of manages to get away with it. And I think that's something worth having in a goalkeeper for someone who's generally as brilliant as he is as well. So, yeah, a few nervy moments from him yesterday, but he comes out on top, he wins the game. So
I think you almost sense that he just loves the rough and tumble of it, So when he drops that one where Milner's coming towards him in the first half, everyone's heart was in their mouth as he's lost it. But he's on it. He's pounced on it.
Yeah.
So he's sort of almost ready for so I've spilt this one, but I'll go again. I'll throw myself on that. He's almost like I don't think horror strikes him the way it does some keepers in those moments.
Or us.
Or us, if you will, or Lloris, as it did.
Right, that's about all we've got time for from this episode of The Second Look. I hope that you are still as giddily happy as we are after the result yesterday. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you to Rob and to Dave for joining me. If you don't already, make sure to go to theanfieldwrap.com/subscribe. Loads of podcasts looking back at the Tottenham game, looking forward to Southampton, which is only 4 days away. It's a Friday night one. I'm so excited. It's going to be great. Loads of videos on the YouTube channel as well, so make sure to get onto them. But enjoy the rest of your week. Spend it thinking about Liverpool winning the title, because why not? Up the Reds.